Welcome to the World War II newspaper channel where we read the Chicago Tribune one day at a time, going through World War II as it happened through the eyes of those who lived it. If you enjoy content like this, please subscribe to this channel and click on the bell icon to get notifications when a new upload is going to premiere. And also, if you want to hear the actual newsmakers, go check out my other channel, the companion channel to this one, the World War II Old Time Radio channel. There we have vintage broadcasts, including newscasts, speeches, old movies, and music. And subscribe to that channel and click on the bell icon. Now for the newspaper. News as read from the Chicago Tribune for Tuesday, December 31st, 1940. New Year's Eve, Henry Chop reporting. The weather today, the sun rose at 7:18 a.m., it set at 4:28 p.m. For Chicago and vicinity, cloudy on Tuesday, followed by rain at night, possibly beginning as snow. Wednesday, occasional rain, not much change in temperature, moderate southeast winds. The low temperature, 33 degrees, the high temperature, 38. Today's headline, Halt War Drive, Wheeler. Washington, D.C., December 30th, asserting that the United States is as close to the brink of war as it was in January 1917, Senator Burton K. Wheeler, Democrat, Montana, tonight appealed to the American people to assert themselves and not be driven like sheep to the slaughtering pens by interventionists and warmongers. Senator Wheeler spoke over a nationwide radio network in reply to President Roosevelt's fireside chat of last night. He said the people heard Mr. Roosevelt's promise that there would be no American expeditionary force, but received no promise that our ships and sailors and planes and pilots will not be sent to Europe in the near future. If we lend or lease war materials today, we will lend or lease American boys tomorrow, said the leader of the Senate non-interventionists. Senator Wheeler deplored Mr. Roosevelt's intimation that those who advocated negotiated peace are appeasers and unwitting dupes of foreign powers, insisting that the only way to banish Hitlerism permanently is to destroy the conditions which produced Nazism. The senator defined what he means by a just and reasonable peace settlement as follows. Number 1, restoration of Germany's 1914 boundaries with the autonomous Poland and Czechoslovakia. Number 2, restoration of independent France, Holland, Norway, Belgium, and Denmark. Number 3, restoration of Alsace-Lorraine to France. Number 4, restoration of German colonies. Number 5, protection of all racial and religious minorities in all countries. Number 6, internationalization of the Suez Canal. Number 7, no indemnities or reparations. Number 8, arms limitation. The Montana senator quoted the late Lord Lothian, British ambassador to the United States, as saying of Nazism, in great measure it was rebellion against the discriminations of the Treaty of Versailles. Although expressing a sympathy for Great Britain, which he said is exceeded only by the depth of sincerity of his Americanism, Senator Wheeler ridiculed President Roosevelt's argument that a Nazi victory would be followed by an attack upon the United States. If Hitler's army can't cross the narrow English Channel in 7 months, he said, his bombers won't fly across the Rockies to bomb Denver tomorrow. For the United States to go into the war, Senator Wheeler declared, would mean the end of democracy in this country. War inevitably means back-breaking debt, beleaguered lives, bedeviled futures, and the end of civil liberties, the end of free speech, free press, free enterprise, he said. It means dictatorship and slavery, all the things we abhor in Nazism, communism, and fascism. It means Stalin or Hitler will have achieved their boast for a totalitarian world without conquering America. The senator asserted that warmongers, sordid romanticists, reckless adventurers, and some whose sympathies and sentiments are stronger than their reasoning powers are seeking to plunge this country into war. He quoted the late Sir Gilbert Parker, who was Britain's publicity agent in America, on the effectiveness of British propaganda in this country before the last war. The America First Committee pledged to prevent rabid interventionists from leading the United States step by step into the European war, expects to take its case directly to Congress through the people of this country at large, General Robert E. Wood, acting national chairman, announced here yesterday. Plans have been completed for this campaign, and Zooming membership in the committee indicates it is reflecting the true sentiment of the nation, he said. Although the committee is less than 4 months old, active chapters already are functioning in 15 principal cities in the eastern portion of the country, and there are members in hundreds of other communities, said General Wood. More than 60,000 persons are now contributing personal time and effort to assure the continuance of peace, he added, and the chief problem of the day is to assist in setting up new America First Committee chapters in the Middle West, where the strongest anti-war sentiment has been found. General Wood paused his work yesterday to charge that President Roosevelt's Sunday night radio address was virtually a personal declaration of an undeclared war on Germany. The general added that in flatly rejecting the idea of a negotiated peace, the president is taking upon himself a share of responsibility for the continuation of the war. We expect to be prepared to go into action in our congressional drive for peace when the present holiday recesses in Washington are over, the general said. When the newly elected Congress convenes, we'll be ready to bear down. Washington, D.C., December 30th. Making one of his final speeches in the Senate, Rush D. Holt, Democrat, West Virginia, today listed as traitors those who advised the entrance of this country into war. Holt lashed newspapers, individuals, and radio commentators who advocate enlistment of this country into giving war supplies to Great Britain. The history of this thing will not be shown, Holt commented, and it will be found that these men are not sincere in this battle. I admire men who are sincere in the fight for democracy, but they have a motley crowd of profiteers and so-called patriots associated with them. What is the strategy today? Let us be honest about it. The strategy is to provoke the Axis powers to declare war on us and then say we are attacked. Such hypocrisy. It is the first time I know of in American history when we have been asked to sacrifice honor in order to get into war and not to protect the country. People who seek to get us into this war to send our sons to the blood-saturated soil of Europe are traitors. America is going to pay the penalty of a long, well-financed plan of the internationalists to tie America to power politics. I again call the attention of the Senate to the figures and the data I have put in the appendix of the record concerning this pure pious group on the William Allen White Committee. New York, December 30th. The National Policy Board of the Committee to Defend America, by aiding the Allies in Extreme War Interventionist Group, tonight denied that there has been any split over the more moderate stand taken last week by William Allen White, Kansas senator, who has been chairman and spokesman for the committee. White had said that as far as he is concerned, the Yanks aren't coming, and that he and the committee opposed the repeal of the Johnson Act, which forbids loans to defaulting nations, and of the Neutrality Act. After a 2-hour session, the board sidestepped the issue by issuing a brief statement endorsing President Roosevelt's radio address of last night. The board reaffirmed the policy it officially agreed upon last November 26th, which was widely interpreted to leave the door wide open for an endorsement of using United States ships to convoy supplies in all-out aid to Great Britain. The board made no reference to the White statement, which General Robert E. Wood of Chicago pointed out to be in sharp disagreement with the November policy statement. General Wood is chairman of the America First Committee, which seeks to keep the nation out of war. Washington, D.C., December 30th. Vern Marshall, editor of the Cedar Rapids, Iowa Gazette and chairman of the No Foreign War Committee, declared at a press conference today that the United States could end the European war by offering its services as mediator. Marshall came to Washington for the purpose of meeting some of the non-interventionist senators. At his request, a small group of them were called together for a luncheon meeting by Senator Bennett Champ Clark, Democrat, Missouri. Senators who attended the conference made no comment on Marshall's proposals. New York, December 30th. The Columbia Broadcasting System today offered Vern Marshall, chairman of the No Foreign War Committee, time from 10:15 to 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Wednesday for a broadcast. Marshall, editor of the Cedar Rapids, Iowa Gazette, said in a radio talk over WGN in Chicago last night that he had been unable to get time on CBS to reply to Herbert Agar before President Roosevelt's Sunday night broadcast. Agar, editor of the Louisville, Kentucky Courier Journal and member of the Committee to Defend America by Aiding the Allies, urged increased aid to Britain in a CBS talk Sunday night. CBS said Marshall telephoned that night for time, but none was available. Hey guys, if you enjoy this channel, check out our companion channel to this one, the World War II Old Time Radio channel. Over there, you will hear radio broadcasts of the newsmakers, the news reporters, and various entertainment programs, comedy, drama, horror, all kinds of fun stuff. And you will also get the number one song every Friday that is represented on that channel as the radio programs correspond with the newspapers that you hear. Each upload premieres the same night the newspaper premieres that you are listening to right now. We even feature movie serials and classic movies on there when YouTube permits it. So swing over to the World War II Old Time Radio channel and click on that bell icon to subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well and click on that bell icon. I know you'll enjoy them. And now for world news. Budapest, Hungary, December 30th. With Germany pouring soldiers into Romania, Hungary called for more men to her army today in what some circles viewed as another phase of vast Nazi preparations for war or any other outbreak in the Balkans. Reports from Sofia, Bulgaria said German troops were deploying along the Russian border in the northern Dobruzha section of Romania, near the disputed Danube River mouth, as well as opposite the Bulgarian shores of the ice-filled Danube River near Gheorghiu. The Sofia reports also said the mouth of the Danube, control of which Russia has demanded, had been mined by the Germans who supervised the river outlet through their domination of Romania. Thousands of Hungarian men of military age were handed mobilization cards last night and today. This move coincided with reports of fresh Russian military activity on highways running from Lviv in Russian Poland to the Slovak frontier. A total Hungarian mobilization is expected by January 15th. The Hungarian call for troops was considered in Budapest political circles as a step in cooperation with the German military machine to protect the German Balkan flank in the event Russia showed an inclination to intervene in Southeast Europe. Reports from heavily censored Romania gave further support to the view that the Nazis were preparing Balkan armies for double duty, which might include striking south against Greece and Turkey, as well as protecting the flank against Russia. Bucharest was ordered to hold air raid warning drills 2 hours each morning. Bucharest, Romania, December 30th. The Romanian Railways tonight announced cancellation for an indefinite period of all trains except 3 expresses and 13 local trains. No official explanation was given. No tickets are being sold to Budapest, Hungary, Belgrade, Yugoslavia, or Sofia, Bulgaria. All plane traffic was stopped. Moscow, December 30th. The Russian press reported Balkan friction today under the headline Hungarian-Romania polemic, but there was no Russian comment on developments. Newspapers published, TASS, official Russian news agency, dispatches from Budapest and Bucharest describing disputes over northern Transylvania, the area transferred from Romania to Hungary through Axis arbitration last August. Athens, Greece, December 30th. Italian troops in Albania took to skis today to battle the counter-invading Greeks, but the Greek High Command announced that the experiment collapsed when the fascists kicked off their runners and scattered. The scene of the action was not disclosed. However, it was one of a series of local engagements in which the Greeks said they took more than 1,000 prisoners, including an entire battalion and its officers, and added to their store of captured Italian guns and supplies. With the Italians struggling afresh and vainly, the Greeks said, to win back some of the Albanian soil they had lost, King George II of Greece tonight praised the achievements of his army in driving the Italians out of Greece. He expressed confidence that the new year would bring further successes. Our struggle will be hard, he said in a message to the Greek people, but our reserves of morale are inexhaustible because a people who are determined to face everything and who do not forget its great traditions have a feeling of honor and human dignity so deeply rooted it never gives away. Dispatches from the front asserted the Greeks, after beating back newly arrived Italians, had scored further local gains north of Chimera in a thrust toward the port of Valona. Heavy losses were claimed among fresh Italian forces in attempted counter-drives in the central sector north of Klissura. Applicable gains, despite stubborn Italian resistance in the Tabellini-Klissura area, were announced by a government spokesman. The remaining Italian last-stand defense lines there were reported shelled heavily. British bombers again raided Valona yesterday, an RAF communique said. London, December 30th. The British Air Ministry's news service announced tonight that Royal Air Force bombers attacked Naples last night. Quoting the Middle East Air Command, it said a two-wave attack scored direct hits on customs houses and jetties and set a fire near a custom jetty, but that weather conditions were so poor the pilots could not judge the full effect of the blaze. All planes returned safely, it was announced. The Italian High Command announced that British planes raiding Naples had killed 7 persons and that propaganda leaflets as well as bombs had been dropped. Cairo, Egypt, December 30th. British bombers attacked bases in the Libyan desert west of Bardia, and preparations were reported to be continuing smoothly tonight for an assault by land forces on the Italian-held port, which has been under a 2-week siege. The British Middle East Air Force Command declared fires were started by raids last night on Tamini, Tmimi, an Italian airbase. Planes were attacked, the communique added, but the extent of the damage could not be observed. Gazala and Derna, the latter an important port about 150 miles west of Bardia, also were attacked from the air, it said. Artillery duels continued between the Italian garrison at Bardia and British forces. The British said intensity of the shelling had increased, but had failed to hamper operations. Rome, December 30th. The Italian Air Force, closely cooperating with the fascist army and navy, has inflicted very important losses on the Greeks in recent days, a Stefani, Italian news agency correspondent, reported tonight from the Greek front in Albania. A long Greek column on the march was attacked for 4 hours north of Koritsa by groups of chasers which machine-gunned the troops, the correspondent reported. Groups of bombers machine-gunned and hammered zones around Veskopia, where Greek concentrations were seen, and a crossroad between Pagraditz, held by the Greeks, and Leschenikia. Other groups poured tons and tons of bombs of various calibers on Preveza, where the army has the most advanced naval base, the correspondent said. Berlin, December 30th. German bombers were reported today to have set a freighter afire east of Harwich and damaged a British mine layer, the German High Command said. The freighter was in convoy. Rome, December 30th. An Italian submarine operating in the Atlantic was credited today by the Italian High Command with shooting down a British bombing plane. Boston, Massachusetts, December 30th. 11 of the 50 American destroyers traded to Britain for Atlantic bases still are at Halifax, Nova Scotia, and St. John's, Newfoundland, for lack of crews to take them across the ocean to England, the crew of the British freighter Dromore said today on arrival from those ports. The Furnace Line seamen completing a voyage from Liverpool said they saw 11 of the warships at Halifax and 4 at St. John's. Others, however, are on convoy escort duty in the Liverpool area, they said. London, December 30th. Among the millions going to work in London today, there were few who were not forced to make their way afoot around charred and smoldering ruins. Some had to walk for miles. Thousands reached their destination only to discover their factories, workshops, offices, or businesses were heaps of smoking or burned out wreckage. As the result of the most devastating series of fires this city has known since the Great Fire of 1666. The whole city area, the financial district, London's Wall Street, was the target for the thousands of incendiary bombs dropped by German raiders Sunday night. The Germans deliberately tried to destroy the city area by fire, an official statement declared. The Ministry of Information said the assault gave the fire department and the auxiliary firefighting services the greatest test they ever are likely to have. Scarcely a street in the city was unmarked by fire or damaged by high explosive bombs. Scores of landmarks in the business district stretching eastward to the Strand were damaged or destroyed. The total damage outdid anything experienced by London since the intense German raid started last September. Ottawa, Ontario, December 30th. The nights of Germany's bombers are numbered, Air Marshal Sir Hugh Dowding assured Canadians today on his arrival here from London en route to the United States. A method of frustrating the night bombers has been found, Dowding said, and the necessary equipment is being completed so rapidly that by spring the bombers' whole weight and sting will have been removed. I don't mean to say that night bombing will cease entirely, the former chief of Britain's fighter command said. Bombers may come, but the casualties from heavy and concentrated attacks will compel them to desist from night bombing, just as they were compelled to give up their policy of crashing through in daylight in preparation for invasion. Peking, China, December 30th. The Japanese command reported today that its forces in North China fought 18,000 engagements against 3,500,000 Chinese guerrillas and regulars in 1940, inflicted 600,000 casualties, and took 27,000 prisoners. The area involved covers all China north of the Yellow River to the Manchukuo and Outer Mongolia frontiers. The Japanese said efforts to reorganize the Chinese Communist Army in northwest China were thwarted in the last 4 months by Japanese thrusts. Berlin, December 30th. A shroud of silence was spread over last night's speech of President Roosevelt in Berlin today. It was not mentioned in the press, and authorized spokesmen asserted they had nothing to say on the subject. It was understood that the speech is being studied closely by Adolf Hitler and his aides. When Mr. Roosevelt made his so-called peace offensive of 1939, Hitler replied in a speech before the Reichstag. Whether he will do the same in this case could not be ascertained. Greece. The Greek press carried long accounts of the president's speech, and the gist of them was that Italy had suffered a severe blow. Turkey. Turkish government circles, press, and the general public received the speech enthusiastically. The official Ankara radio said it constituted a major turning point in the war. The newspaper TAN said that America has decided the result of this war just as she did by entrance into the First World War. France. Government circles in Vichy were surprised and sympathetic, informed sources said, but the government was found to maintain reserve because of unoccupied France's situation. Switzerland. The Basel Nationalzeitung, one of the leading Swiss papers voicing virtually the only free neutral European comment on the Roosevelt speech, called it the clearest affirmation yet that the United States wants to defeat the Axis powers even if it does not wage war directly. Japan. Unofficial Japanese sources said the president's reference to China's great defense indicated to them a commitment to further American aid for Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek's government. China. Chinese political and press circles said that Mr. Roosevelt's mention that the American fleet was in the Pacific was regarded by them as an indication the United States was prepared to fight Japan if necessary. Mexico, the first newspaper to comment, Ultimas Noticias of Mexico City, said Mr. Roosevelt wants to get the United States into the war, and this is terrible for those who, like ourselves, may be drawn into its orbit. From last night, there has been initiated, without any doubt whatsoever, the universal war. Argentina. Wherever Argentines gathered, Mr. Roosevelt's speech was a topic of conversation, generally of approval, but no official newspaper comment has appeared so far. Baltimore, Maryland, December 30th. The Baltimore Sun said tonight it had learned that 3 of Pan American Airways' 6 new transoceanic flying boats now under construction had been sold to the British government. The sale had the approval of the United States government, the Sun said, and it is reported that the transaction was carried out at the behest of the State Department as a means of further aid to Great Britain. The planes are not designed for military use, but would be useful for long-range patrol flights over the North Atlantic. They're valuable, especially for their load-carrying capacity and great range. Sale price to the British was reported to be $1 million a plane. The Sun said it was testified at a hearing before the Civil Aeronautics Board in Washington, D.C. recently by Pan American Airways officials that the airline would pay the manufacturer $4,600,000 for all 6 ships. Helsingfors, Finland by mail. Germany's continued reinforcement of her large garrison at Kirkenes, Norway's most northern harbor, has been carried out to forestall a Russian movement of troops across northern Finland to the Norwegian seaport, according to informed diplomatic circles. At the suggestion of Sir Stafford Cripps, British ambassador to Moscow, who has been trying to persuade Russia to join in the war, the Soviets were seriously considering moving part of their army to Kirkenes, these sources declare. When the pact between Germany, Italy, and Japan was announced, and Germany sent 5,000 troops to reinforce the Kirkenes garrison, Russia abandoned the idea of seizing Kirkenes and thus obtaining a large desired outlet on the Atlantic. The rigid censorship in Finland has kept this contemplated violation of Finnish territory from her people, who have been forced to comply with a steady stream of demands by Russia since signing of the peace treaty in Moscow last March. Madrid, Spain, December 30th. Spanish reports from Algeciras today said large new supplies of munitions are arriving at Gibraltar and other defense preparations are proceeding rapidly. Algeciras is across the bay from the British fortress Rock. Lisbon, Portugal, December 30th. Admiral William D. Leahy, a new United States ambassador to Vichy, France, said tonight he expected to arrive at his post on January 5th. Arriving here with Mrs. Leahy aboard the United States cruiser Tuscaloosa, he planned to leave by train tomorrow for Madrid, where he intended to spend 3 or 4 days. Admiral Leahy said he met the French Chief of State, Marshal Henry Philippe Pétain, several years ago in New York, and added, "America's friendly feelings for France are as strong as ever. We have many historical and intellectual ties and sincerely hope that France will come out well from her misfortunes." Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, December 30th. National defense from the standpoint of geography and airplane attack, and in the broader sense of building social and individual discipline to meet the psychological as well as the physical threat of hostile nations, formed discussion subjects today at the sessions of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. Greenland as an American outpost was discussed by Professor William H. Hobbs of the University of Michigan in the geology section. He was a leader for several years of the university's expedition to that island. He said that southern Greenland is only 1,200 miles from northern Maine and 500 from Labrador. From our new naval and air base in Newfoundland, he said, Greenland is barely 1,000 miles distant, thus well within the radius of action of modern bombing planes and almost within that of pursuit planes. Washington, D.C., December 30th. After a conference with President Roosevelt and Arthur B. Purvis, head of the British Purchasing Commission, Secretary of the Treasury Henry Morgenthau Jr. said today that the administration's plan of lending or leasing aid to Great Britain may be extended to Greece and China. Morgenthau said that the loan lease plan to Britain might apply to anybody. He added, however, that any application of that policy to Britain or any other country depends upon congressional action. Legislation to authorize and supply funds for the arms purchases is needed, he noted. Morgenthau declined to comment on the matters which he had discussed with Mr. Roosevelt and Purvis. He said that his meeting with Purvis was for the purpose of going into his problems and added that it didn't begin to cover 10% of the ground. He was informing me as to what he has learned concerning Britain's needs, Morgenthau said. Morgenthau denied that any mention of a specific timetable for aid to Britain has been made to him, saying that the only time limit discussed was as fast as possible. Chinese officials also have been discussing with the Treasury the possibility of shipments of warplanes to that country, Morgenthau said, but added that there just isn't enough planes to go around. They may have gotten 5 or 10 planes in the last 6 months, Morgenthau said, but I doubt if it's been more. Morgenthau refused to comment on reports that the United States might seize or purchase foreign merchant vessels tied up in American ports. He disclaimed any knowledge of reports that the Coast Guard had already inspected these ships. Copenhagen, Denmark, via Berlin, December 30th. Soap rationing began today in Denmark. Each inhabitant may have 1 bar of soap a month. Berlin, December 30th. A woman who failed to appear for training in the anti-air raid services in Wiesbaden was sentenced today to 2 months imprisonment. Testimony was introduced to show that her claim of illness was untrue. The court said it was the duty of every German to participate in air raid protection training. Madrid, Spain, December 30th. A cold wave over all Spain brought ice and snow today to normally warm Seville for the first time in many years. Hey guys, if you enjoy this channel, check out our companion channel to this one, the World War II Old Time Radio channel. Over there, you will hear radio broadcasts of the newsmakers, the news reporters, and various entertainment programs, comedy, drama, horror, all kinds of fun stuff. And you will also get the #1 song every Friday that is represented on that channel as the radio programs correspond with the newspapers that you hear. Each upload premieres the same night the newspaper premieres that you are listening to right now. We even feature movie serials and classic movies on there when YouTube permits it. So swing over to the World War II Old Time Radio channel and click on that bell icon to subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well and click on that bell icon. I know you'll enjoy them. And now for national news. Washington, D.C., December 30th. An increasing number of cases of respiratory diseases and influenza was reported by the War Department today at Army stations on the West Coast and in Southwest and Central states. The infections were being described, however, as being of mild character and not important from the viewpoint of mortality. The department said that the illnesses were considered at their height in Kentucky, Oklahoma, Iowa, and Colorado. Washington, D.C., December 30th. Patriotic Americans will doubt the sincerity of President Roosevelt in his pleas for the democracies abroad if he continues to listen to avowed enemies of the democratic system of government, Representative Claire E. Hoffman, Republican Michigan, told the House today. Hoffman referred to the recent suggestion of Walter Reuther, official of the United Automobile Workers of America, CIO, that planes could be produced at inactive motor plants. Reuther, who is director of the General Motors division of the UAWA, presented his plan personally to Mr. Roosevelt. He requested, Hoffman said, that the president take over that part of the motor industrial plant, which, in his opinion, is not being used to full capacity. The Michigan congressman noted that Earl Browder, General Secretary of the Communist Party, who has been sentenced to 4 years in prison for use of an illegally obtained passport, also stated that we industrial unionists are going to take over the factories. Ruther's suggestion, if carried out, would accomplish the demand earlier made by Browder, the communist, Hoffman said. It should not be forgotten that Ruther and his brother Victor at one time made a trip to Russia where they studied subversive activities and revolutionary tactics. Hoffman asked that President Roosevelt ensure the right of defense workers to hold their jobs without joining unions. He said the UAWA was threatening a strike at the Alice Chalmers Manufacturing Company in Milwaukee, which has an order of $18 million worth of turbine and shafting for the United States Navy. New Brunswick, New Jersey, December 30th. The National Student Federation of America, one of the founders of the National Youth Congress and representative of about 100 college student councils, by a vote of more than 3-1, withdrew today from the American Youth Congress because of that organization's alleged radical tendencies. The AYC has frequently been accused of being controlled by communists. The Federation refused to affiliate with the International Student Service, which offered to supply financial aid to the distressed Federation if the two groups were merged. The Federation questioned the altruism of the International Student Service, in which Mrs. Franklin D. Roosevelt has officially interested herself since disagreement with the Youth Congress policies. Before the vote to disaffiliate passed 87-24, Mrs. Frances Williams, Executive Secretary of the American Youth Congress, answered questions about the Congress. She defended the presence in the organization of such radical organizations as the Young Communist League on the ground that they represented a real section of youth. She denied that money for support of the Congress came from Moscow. New York, December 30th. In a drama of surgery, the heart of a 9-year-old boy stabbed accidentally was speedily lifted out, sewed up, and replaced in time to save his life, it was revealed today at Jamaica Hospital, Queens. The lad, Richard Guerin, was recovering tonight. Early last night, Richard went to his mother's room in their home in Jamaica. With her pointed hair-cutting scissors, he began cutting out paper play money from a newspaper comic page. When his father, Edmund, remarked, "Time for bed, Dickie," the boy leaped onto the bed, the scissors caught in a fold on the coverlet and pierced his heart. He screamed, pulled the blades out, and slumped unconscious. The elder Guerin seized his boy in his arms and raced 3 blocks to the hospital. The senior surgeon, Dr. A. Hudler Smith, Jr., took one look, rushed the boy to the operating table, summoned Dr. Gustav R. Petz and Dr. Albert L. Merlis. The operation was performed immediately. The surgeons cut into the chest cavity and lifted the heart out to the chest surface. They drained the cavity of blood. Then they laid back the pericardium or membranous sac. They took 3 stitches in the left ventricle where the scissors had penetrated. Then they closed the pericardium and replaced the heart in its proper position. From the operating table, the boy was rushed to a bed and given a transfusion of his father's blood. Hey guys, if you enjoy this channel, check out our companion channel to this one, the World War II Old Time Radio channel. Over there, you will hear radio broadcasts of the newsmakers, the news reporters, and various entertainment programs, comedy, drama, horror, all kinds of fun stuff. And you will also get the #1 song every Friday that is represented on that channel as the radio programs correspond with the newspapers that you hear. Each upload premieres the same night the newspaper premieres that you are listening to right now. We even feature movie serials and classic movies on there when YouTube permits it. So swing over to the World War II Old Time Radio channel and click on that bell icon to subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well and click on that bell icon. I know you'll enjoy them. And now for local and regional news. Not much of Chicago's adult population is expected to be in bed tonight when 1941 breaks through at midnight. Many will disport themselves with hats, horns, hilarity, and potential headaches. Many will gather in churches and temples to pray that the new year will be less troubled than its predecessor. If the predictions of church leaders are fulfilled, many persons will greet 1941 with prayer as with gay festivity, and in every church the prayers for 1941 will be principally prayers for peace. If the predictions of Captain David Flynn, chief of the traffic police, are fulfilled, a roaring 500,000 Chicagoans of varying ages over 16 will be swarming in or out of hotels, restaurants, and nightclubs or over curbstones when the new year is ushered in. To cope with or protect the revelers, Captain Flynn will concentrate on 198 policemen in the loop alone. In addition, he will place 85 traffic policemen at congested crossings elsewhere. 75 motorcycle men and 85 accident prevention men also will be on duty. Throughout the city, revelry is expected to be at a supreme level. Hotels and nightclubs report a heavy demand for reservations at prices ranging over an average of $7.50 a person plus tax to a high of $12.50 a person and a new low of $1. At the latter spot, 3,700 merrymakers are expected. Everybody, says the captain, meaning all his men, will be on their toes. They will work until 4 in the morning when everybody will be gone home. If not, they ought to be. Although New Year's Day as such has no religious significance, many churches make New Year's Eve watch services important, and most of the Methodist, Baptist, Presbyterian, and Lutheran churches in Chicago will hold such services tonight. There will be no midnight masses in Catholic churches in the Chicago Archdiocese, but a few churches, among them St. Agnes, St. Mary's, and Old St. James, will have 3 a.m. Mass, and at St. James, the historic chimes will peal in the new year at midnight. Private Warren Oliver, 19 years old, assigned to Fort Knox, Kentucky, was arrested by South Chicago police yesterday for the Army authorities for overstaying a leave of absence. He told the police he was 5 days overdue on a 10-day pass, but wanted to celebrate New Year's Eve in Chicago. I suppose that I'll get 15 days in the guardhouse for this, but it was worth the try, he said. Cook County Draft Headquarters yesterday announced the quotas of men, which 7 more local boards of Chicago will be called on to provide for induction into the Army between Friday, January 8th. These boards, which must provide a total of 124 men, were called on at this late date because most of the registrants of 7 boards originally scheduled to provide draftees at that time are colored, and the quotas for those boards were canceled. The cancellation was ordered because the Army will have inadequate facilities to induct more Negroes until February. 43 Chicago local boards, including these designated yesterday, will provide approximately 700 draftees in the period January 3rd to January 8th. The boards designated yesterday to take place of the quotas for the colored areas are number 44, 18 men, number 45, 19 men, number 57, 19 men, all to report Friday at the Chicago Induction Station, 234 East Chicago Avenue. And board number 50, 19 men, number 54, 16 men, and number 65, 16 men, who report January 6th, 7th, and 8th, respectively. All officers of Local 705 of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters and Chauffeurs were re-elected. Results of the election held Sunday showed yesterday. The incumbents held a 2-1 lead over a slate of rank-and-file candidates who sought to defeat the present officials. Re-elected officers are Fred Teat, President H.E. Wood, Secretary and Treasurer George McCarthy, Vice President Michael Ronan, regarding Secretary Tony Cerrone, Al Taphorn, and Vern Campbell, trustees, and John Russo and Frank Kretke, business agents. State's Attorney Courtney's office was asked yesterday to investigate tactics of campaigners for the re-election of George B. McLean as business agent of Local 278 of the Bartenders Union. Attorney Raymond F. Hayes, counsel for a group of candidates of the anti-McLean faction, reported that his clients had been harassed over the weekend by McLean and others. Circuit Judge Robert Jerome Dunn is expected to rule today on several motions pertaining to the coming election, which he ordered held January 6th in his courtroom. Judge Dunn appointed a receiver for the union last August on petition of McLean, who said then that Frank the Enforcer Nitti and other gangsters were running the union. Suit by the county against the German-American Bund in Chicago and its affiliated organizations, the Teutonia Publishing Company, for $380.55 in personal property taxes for 1938 was settled yesterday with the payment of $461.39 to cover taxes, penalties, and interest. The case came up before Municipal Judge Oscar S. Kaplan. Neither Dr. Otto Willemut, head of the Bund, nor a representative of the publishing company appeared. The payment was made by checks sent to the state's attorney. Judge Kaplan said the tax payment settled the matter so far as the court was concerned and that no further action was contemplated. However, the Federal Bureau of Investigation still is examining Bund records seized by the police. County Highway Police in Homewood last night announced they had broken up a gang of hoodlums which has been robbing and beating motorists on Lincoln Highway between Western and Torrance Avenues in recent weeks. Those held, all from Chicago Heights, are Joseph Rossi, 21 years old, 28 East 23rd Street, Emo Sebastiani, 26 of 227 East 21st Street, Alex DeSandri, 22 of 253 East 25th Street, and George Florenzo, 23 of 192 West 25th Place. Police said they admitted several auto stick-ups and the robbery of a Joliet dairy. Lieutenant Fred Mulhausen of the Homewood Station said 3 members of the gang were robbing a motorist Friday night at Western Avenue and Sauk Trail when a second motorist reported them. Sergeant Anthony Urban and Deputy Thomas DeChain, notified by radio, chased the bandit car until it was abandoned in a prairie near Chicago Heights, then traced the license to Rossi. Rossi, meanwhile, had reported the car stolen. The others were arrested through Rossi. Mrs. Mary Myers, 46 years old, proprietor of a grocery store at 4344 Thomas Street, spent an uncomfortable 10 minutes yesterday after 2 hold-up men left with $68 taken from the cash register and from a fruit jar in her cupboard. Before leaving, the men had bound her wrists with tape, wrapped an apron around her head, and hung her in the icebox. She was rescued by a truck driver who heard her tapping on the floor, which she was just able to reach with her toes. Her injuries included bruised wrists and a bad cold. Joseph Zweig, 49 years old, 4214 North Pulaski Road, spotted in a cleaning plant, was held up and robbed of $67 Friday night. The hold-up man seemed friendly, however, and when Zweig told him he couldn't afford to lose the money because he was sending his son through the University of Illinois and had other expenses, the hold-up man expressed regret. "Times are hard for me, too," the stick-up man said, "or I wouldn't be doing this. Why don't you put an ad in the paper telling me your name and address, and if things pick up and I get the chance, I'll send all or anyway part of it back to you." Ernest Evans, 18 years old and colored, of 1809 Lake Street, recently was placed on probation after admitting that on 4 occasions he broke into a restaurant at 843 Randolph Street and each time stole a pair of the owner's shoes and a box of candy and fried himself a mess of pork chops. Friday, the place was robbed again and the same things taken. This time, an old pair of shoes was left and a brand new pair taken. Detectives James Huey and Patrick Kennedy arrested Evans yesterday. He will be asked to explain the new shoes he's wearing to Judge Joseph Drucker. 2 stench bombs caused $1,000 damage yesterday when they were thrown into Jack's Quality Market, 437 South Kedzie Avenue. One exploded and spoiled large quantities of holiday poultry. Two big windows were broken. Jack Caliendo, 3138 Congress Street, the owner, told Warren Avenue police that he and his two sons run the shop alone and he has had no union trouble. The slow destruction of old age that is creeping over sections of the city near the Loop can be halted by architects, builders, landscape designers, and real estate developers. This hope was held out yesterday by Elmer C. Jensen, president of the Chicago Building Congress, in an address before the City Club of Chicago in the LaSalle Hotel. Jensen said enactment of the neighborhood development bill drafted by the Building Congress would open the door for private capital to help salvage the city's rundown areas. The proposed measure provides for the creation of privately financed redevelopment corporations possessing power to condemn land of minority owners who stand in the way of slum clearance projects. The measure will be submitted to the state legislature soon after it convenes next month. A final hearing on the proposed bill will be held Friday morning before the City Council Subcommittee on Housing. Milk will be furnished 100 to milk will. It's an odd constructed sentence. Let me read that. Well, I'll read it exactly as written. Milk will be furnished 100,000 children at a cost of 1 cent a half pint in 119 elementary schools in Chicago's low-income areas under a plan approved yesterday by the Surplus Marketing Administration in Washington, D.C. Milk handlers will submit bids for supplying the milk on Monday, said L.J. Steck, agricultural economist of the Marketing Administration. If bids are accepted, the program will get underway January 20th and operate until the close of school next June. The Board of Education will pay 1 cent a half pint for the milk and the Surplus Marketing Administration the rest. Pupils will pay only 1 cent a half pint, however. Milk is now sold at the schools at 4 or 5 cents a half pint, F.O. Washam, director of the Board of Education's lunchroom program, said. Religious instruction for high school pupils, organized and sponsored by city churches of all denominations, was advocated yesterday by Superintendent of Schools William H. Johnson in an address before the Chicago Church Federation at the Central YMCA. If the church bodies make a formal request for the religious training, Dr. Johnson said, he would recommend to the Board of Education that full high school credit be awarded for the instruction. High school students show too little concern with religion, Dr. Johnson said. I believe it is a sound policy to give religious training both recognition and credit in our educational system. The courses would be given in neighborhood churches with trained instructors and adequate equipment provided by the churches themselves. The pupils would be granted 2 hours a week to attend classes. Hey guys, if you enjoy this channel, check out our companion channel to this one, the World War II Old Time Radio channel. Over there, you will hear radio broadcasts of the newsmakers, the news reporters, and various entertainment programs, comedy, drama, horror, all kinds of fun stuff. And you will also get the #1 song every Friday that is represented on that channel as the radio programs correspond with the newspapers that you hear. Each upload premieres the same night the newspaper premieres that you are listening to right now. We even feature movie serials and classic movies on there when YouTube permits it. So swing over to the World War II Old Time Radio channel and click on that bell icon to subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well and click on that bell icon. I know you'll enjoy them. Pasadena, California, December 30th. More trouble descended upon Stanford's Indians, the Cinderella men of football today, when an epidemic of sore legs forced abandonment of their morning drill for Wednesday's Rose Bowl game and necessitated a switch to another practice field for the afternoon workout. After several players had reported ailing underpinning at the outset of the morning drill, Coach Clark Shaughnessy pulled the squad, and learning over half the players were suffering from a mysterious affliction. A halt was called immediately. New Orleans, Louisiana, December 30th. Boston College and Tennessee, each boasting a record of 10 straight victories, went through their last hard workouts today for their meeting in the 7th annual Sugar Bowl game Wednesday. The Easterners, cheered by the return to the lineup of Gene Gooderalt, their All-America end, are training at Bay St. Louis, and Tennessee, champion of the Southeastern Conference, has been doing its conditioning work at nearby Edgewater Park. Meanwhile, the vanguard of the crowd of 70,000, which will fill every seat in the Tulane Stadium, is pouring into New Orleans. Luggage was piled high tonight in hotel lobbies as special trains unloaded hundreds of visitors wearing the colors of the Tennessee Volunteers or the Boston College Eagles. Heading the Tennessee delegation was Governor Prentice Cooper. At the helm of the Boston party was that city's youthful mayor, Maurice J. Tobin. Another chapter will be added to the athletic rivalry between Northwestern and Notre Dame tonight when the basketball teams of the two schools clash in the Evanston High School gymnasium before a capacity crowd. All tickets have been sold, but some seats may be available at the gate if the students do not fill up their section. Tonight's game will be the 27th in a series dating from 1927 and finds the Irish holding an edge of 14 victories against 12 for the Wildcats. The rivalry has been so intense that in 7 of the 13 years, the teams have split the two annual games. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, December 30th. A capacity crowd of 5,500 is expected tomorrow night as Marquette University faces Illinois and Wisconsin meets Princeton in a basketball doubleheader in Milwaukee Auditorium. The Marquette-Illinois game will mark the establishment of basketball relations between the two schools and the first meeting in any sport since the Marquette-Illinois 6-6 football tie at Champaign in 1908. Washington, D.C., December 30th. George Washington University rallied in the last minute of play tonight to overcome a 1-point Minnesota lead and defeat the Gophers 46-43 before 3,600 fans. Trailing most of the way, the Gophers went ahead on a shot by Don Carlson, but the Colonials came back to regain the lead on a beautiful long shot by Joe Comer. The game's leading scorer with 16 points, Lou Veltri, Colonial guard, then clinched victory by getting loose under the basket. Max Zunick, with 13 points, was second in scoring for the winners. Bill Lind, sophomore center, paced Minnesota's attack with 12 points. New Orleans, Louisiana, December 30th. The University of Indiana's National Intercollegiate Championship basketball team won the annual Sugar Bowl title tonight by defeating the University of Kentucky Southeastern Conference leader 48-45. The game was witnessed by 7,500 fans, described as the largest ever to see a basketball game in New Orleans. Columbus, Ohio, December 30th. Princeton's Tigers defeated Michigan's Wolverines 30-29 in a hard-fought battle in the Ohio Coliseum tonight in the first game of a doubleheader basketball card. In the second game, Pittsburgh whipped Ohio State 48-34. The Buckeyes took a 12-3 lead in the first few minutes, then Pitt started. Pittsburgh led at the half 23-14. The game was rough and fast with 35 personal fouls, 2 double fouls, and a technical foul being called, the latter on Captain Gil Michelson, who was forced from the game on personals. Princeton led Michigan throughout except for a minute in the second half when the Wolverines took a 20-19 lead. The first half ended with the Tigers ahead 17-12. It took the Wolverines most of the first half to solve the fast-pacing offense of the Tigers, but once they got going, they made a game of it. With less than a minute to go, Captain Herbert Brogan missed a foul goal, which would have tied the score at 30 all. From here on, there were 3 jump balls, which took up the remaining time. Still smarting from the 2 defeats suffered in Akron and determined to get back on the victory path against the Sheboygan Redskins, whom they meet in the National Basketball League contest in the 132nd Regiment Armory tomorrow night. The Chicago Bruins scheduled another practice session for this afternoon on the Armory court. Tomorrow night's Bruins-Sheboygan battle will start at 9 o'clock. George Allen and Coley Dahlstrom, the Blackhawks' two leading scorers, will be ready to play in Chicago Stadium tomorrow night in the Hawks contest with the Detroit Red Wings. Allen has been handicapped recently by injuries, and Dahlstrom hasn't been in action since December 14th because of an injured knee, a misfortune that kept him out of 6 games. Word that the two stars would be ready to resume work was received by the team when it limped home yesterday from a discouraging road trip that saw them gain only 1 point in 3 games. They tied the world champion New York Rangers in the first match of their trip, 3-3, were whacked down by the Canadiens 7-5, and Sunday night lost again to the Red Wings 2-1. They were ahead in each of the games, but weaknesses resulting from the scourge of injuries prevented them from staying in front. New York, December 30th. Monty Pearson, the right-handed curveball specialist who played an important part in the Yankees' drive to 4 successive pennants and world championships, was sold today to the world champion Cincinnati Reds for an undisclosed sum, and Don Lang, a young third baseman who was with Indianapolis last season. Guesses are that the Yankees got $25,000. In announcing the sale, Ed Barrow, Yankee president, said it was an outright deal with no conditions. Brooklyn also bid for Pearson, but dropped out when the Yankees refused to sell him on a conditional basis. Pearson did not pitch for the Yankees until after July 24th last season because of a lame shoulder. Whether he is sound now or not will have to be determined in spring training camp. He got into 16 games, winning 7 and losing 6. His last winning game was on July 17th when he beat Bob Feller and the Indians 4-3 in 13 innings. In sound physical condition, Pearson is considered one of the best pitchers in baseball. He is only 31 years old and has a wide variety of stuff. Pearson's best year was in 1936, his first year with the Yankees, when he won 19 games, lost 7, and had an earned run average of 3.71. The best after that was in 1938, when he won 16 and lost 7. With Cleveland in 1934, he won 18 and lost 13. In 8 years with Cleveland and the Yankees, he won 99 games and lost 59. Pearson came to the Yanks on December 11, 1935, along with Steve Sundra in a trade for Johnny Allen, who only recently was sold to the Browns by the Indians. The White Sox yesterday claimed the distinction of being the first Major League club to have a player lopped from its roster by the new Selective Service Act. Eugene Stack, 22-year-old right-hander of Saginaw, Michigan, has been ordered to report January 7th at Camp Custer, Michigan for military training. Stack was purchased last fall from the Lubbock, Texas club upon the recommendation of Billy Webb, supervisor of the Sox farm system, who tabbed the youngster as an exceptional prospect. He was in 31 games last season, 24 of them being complete jobs. He won 19 and lost 11 and won 4 more in the league playoffs. In 246 innings, Stack piled up 238 strikeouts. I just looked up this guy over on Wikipedia, Eugene Stack. He would die in 1942. He did not die in battle. He did die in the service, though. He died of a heart attack caused by pneumonia. So that's kind of a sad ending to this story here. Yuma, Arizona, December 30th. Auburn-haired Betty Proctor, a daughter of the chairman of the Arizona Highway Commission, and Henry Hank Lieber, outfielder with the Chicago Cubs, were married here today. The bride's parents are Mr. and Mrs. J.M. Proctor, Tucson, Arizona. Lieber's home is in Phoenix, Arizona. Well, happy anniversary. I hope you had a wonderful marriage. And that is sports, and that is the news for Tuesday, December 31st, 1940. Have a swell day.